In my experience going to theme parks, it seems like the thing that will most likely deter someone from riding a roller coaster is being intimidated by inversions. Am I right?
No, going upside down. It's inherently just something that is like...
unnatural?
Yeah, exactly.
However, we love them.
Yeah, absolutely. So whether it's a zero-G roll, vertical loop, corkscrew, we love that sensation
Banana
of being
roll.
flipped upside down.
Sushi roll.
Some rides
California roll.
take it to the next level. You done?
No. Yes.
I love it when a ride subverts your expectations, where you think you know how that inversion's gonna feel, and then it just has a flair to it. Something about it, a kink in the track, or maybe just a little bit extra whip to it, but you are totally blown away by that sensation. And today we're gonna be looking at our favorite roller coaster inversions around the world.
So we're looking at inversions on specific rides. So like maybe a cobra roll on one ride is just a cobra roll, but on another ride it's like a holy cow kind of moment. So these are like the craziest ones that we came up with. There's probably way more out there, so we already know we're gonna get the comments being like, but you forgot this one. It's like, yeah, you know, such is life.
This is not end all be all, but I feel like we should start things off with probably the most talked about inversion maybe ever, and that's the Mosasaurus roll on Velocicoaster.
So if you don't know, that is the absolutely bonkers inversion that goes right over the lake at the very end of the ride. And I want to say, I think it's really cool that the most exciting moment of the entire ride is like the finale.
Yeah.
Which is very rare. I feel like usually roller coasters kind of, they peak and then they die down as we go. But this one is like, let's save the craziest moment for the very end.
Yeah, so what makes this moment work so well is that you're getting laterals while rotating. So you think that it's just gonna be a normal inline twist, but then it just has a little extra whip to it. So you just get tossed to the left where you're just completely floored by like how quickly you rotate through that moment. It's like, all right, when we're going, and then boom. There we go.
And you're like dangling over the water, which is very intimidating.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And you can always tell that people are like going nuts over this part because the queue goes right next to this element, and you hear everyone scream just a little bit louder when they go through the Mosasaurus roll.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, it's really upside down airtime, like ejector moment. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So opening up around close to the same time was Iron Gwazi, which featured a never-before-seen inversion called the Death Roll. They had a name for it, but I don't remember what it's called.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Everyone calls it the Death Roll. But it's like crazy good. I feel like this is the element that everyone contrasted to the Mosasaurus roll.
Think like the beginning of Twisted Timbers if you were going at full speed. That's pretty much what it is. And it's crazy.
Literally partway through the ride. Yeah, you're just rising up and then you just like whip to the side as you're dropping down. Mm-hmm. So you're building up more momentum as you pass through this inversion. It is so nuts.
And it feels crazier than it looks. And it looks pretty darn crazy.
Yeah. I think I would still give the edge to the Mosasaurus roll, but dang, the Death Roll is really good.
Well, I'm just going to say right off the bat, the Mosasaurus roll is my favorite on this list.
Yeah. I think that's...
Probably.
I would say, I think it's my favorite too, but man, some of these moments that we're going to talk about coming up are crazy. From one RMC to another element that people love talking about is on the new Air Force One roller coaster at Fun Spot Atlanta, and that is the arcade roll. Again, that's what we've nicknamed it.
I don't really know what the formal name is, but it's a really, really tight inversion that goes right over the arcade at Fun Spot Atlanta. And it has a similar feeling to the Mosasaurus roll in that it's a very tight twist. And like, it's so fast, the speed you're moving at, that it feels unnatural.
Well, yeah, it comes right after you do this like huge drop. It's like one of the biggest drops on the ride. So you're going from this high moment to then just this completely level inversion over the building. It is like so fast-paced and quick. You're like, whoa, like it's over before you even know it.
Mm-hmm. So before the Mosasaurus roll was even a thought in anybody's minds, Blue Fire featured something that everyone just calls the Blue Fire roll, which has a semi-similar sensation, just not quite as intense.
Yeah, I'd say so, which is so funny because like Blue Fire overall is a relatively mild thrill coaster. Yeah,
She's
like
tame.
The inversions are very predictable, except for this last moment. It just rotates you with such a snappiness that is so unexpected. You don't think that it's going to feel the way it does.
Yeah, and Blue Fire has a decent amount of clones around the world, so you can find that same element on like Steel Taipan, for example.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did that in Australia last year, and it is awesome.
Yeah, this is just an incredible moment.
It's the best part of the ride.
Yeah, 100%. Going all the way back to 2004 with Storm Runner, that ride features an element that is the only one in the world, and that is the flying snake dive. It sounds completely ridiculous.
Literally, who names these things?
I don't know, but it is so good. So essentially, you rise up into like what would be the start of an airtime hill, and then you start rotating, and while you're upside down, you then do like the top half of a dive loop. So it's like part way like heartline roll, and then also a dive loop. It's just smushed into one moment.
That's one way to explain it.
It's really good, and it's like so cool to watch as well.
So the next one I'm going to talk about is the only one that I could see maybe being like topping the Mosasaurus roll, but it's very different, so it's hard to compare because it's not a traditional inversion because you are rotating while you are going through this inversion, and I don't really know what it's called, but we're just going to call it the final inversion on Ride to Happiness.
Yeah, honestly, it kind of feels like a flying snake dive in a weird way. I mean, this is you're spinning through it, so that automatically makes it significantly crazier. But I remember during our first ride, we're going through this element, and we are just like, "Wow, is that?" Yeah. Like, what is going on? It takes you like several rides to comprehend this moment.
It's also a lot longer. Like the Mosasaurus roll is very like, and it's over. Like this is more drawn out, and it's like happening to you, and you don't know which way's up, which way's down, and it's just.
Oh
beautiful.
man, like, Ride to Happiness as a whole is just like a crazy ride, but this was by far the craziest moment. Even like Time Traveler's another extreme spinning coaster. Like none of the inversions quite match that. Although I do really love the corkscrew on Time Traveler. That one is also pretty fun. But this
one's better.
This tops it. Speaking of Ride to Happiness, that's not the only really good inversion on that ride. We have to talk about the first inversion, which is a JoJo roll. Now, there's a couple JoJo rolls around the world. Copperhead Strike has one. Hydra the Revenge was the first one to it. But this is by far the best JoJo roll because, again, you are rotating through it. So
you're rotating this way to get out of the station, but you're also rotating this way. So on two different axes, you're rotating, and it's just...
Yeah. Well, and depending on where you sit on the train, it feels different. When you are in the first car, it is extremely slow. But then when you're in the last car, you kind of whip through it. Because by then, the rest of the train has built up momentum and is exiting the moment by the time you're just now going through it.
Can we go back?
Dude, Ride to Happiness, man.
Why are we going other places?
That one. That's the ride.
Why are we not there right now? So the next one was kind of briefly mentioned as like being, I guess, the predecessor of the death roll on Iron Gwazi. And that's the barrel roll down drop that is featured on a couple different RMCs as like the first drop. So think Twisted Timbers, Storm Chaser, Medusa, all of them have it, and it's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, what cooler way to start off a ride? Like, it's so traditional for you to just, like, have a normal drop, but it's like, oh, no, here, we're going to flip you as we're going. Also, the Smiler has a very similar moment. So it's definitely a cool, unique sensation, you know? I don't know if I would prefer it over, like, a really good traditional drop, but it's still just like, it's mesmerizing. I mean, everyone's just like, whoa, you know, it looks so cool.
Well, that's how RMC sold the idea of doing Storm Chaser to Kentucky Kingdom.
Yeah.
Was like, check out this idea for the first drop, and they're like, you know what? We're sold. Let's do it.
Yeah, totally. So I mentioned the Smiler. They have some inversions on that ride. In fact, they have more than any other on the planet. 14. Specifically, there's some moments on that are incredibly unique. And this is less about how the ride feels and more about just the technicality of being able to make this element happen. And that is that they interlocked a Cobra roll with a Batwing. So you have not only this like incredible like mess of track that is just woven together, but also it is perfectly timed to go through those elements at the exact same moment.
So cool.
That is so wild. Like, I would say it's almost cooler to watch than to actually experience. It's still good when you're on it. I like the Batwing more than the Cobra roll. But holy crap, that element is so impressive. The whole ride is impressive.
Did you say Batwing?
Yeah, I like Batwing.
Well, you know what? That leads me to the next one.
There we go.
The Batwing on Montu.
Oh, that's the best Batwing. Yeah.
It is so violent, but like in a way that it is comfortable. Don't worry.
Yeah, so this is when you flip over and head towards the ground and then come out the other end. Mm-hmm. So it's like an inverted Cobra roll. Yeah. And for some reason, this is like way cooler. I don't know. I feel like it's a wilder sensation to get flung towards the ground than like up in the air. You have more speed.
It's awesome.
Yeah, dude, Montu, that thing has some whip to it. You know, this is not one of my favorite inversions. I would actually say I'm not a huge fan of this, but when we're talking about like the craziest moments of flipping riders upside down, I feel like you have to at least acknowledge the final Heartline rolls that exist on Intamin's 10 inverting coasters. So Colossus at Thorpe Park, Sick at Flamingo Land. There's a couple others out there, but it is just one after another, and it is
exhausting.
It is exhausting. It is so much to handle, especially on sick when it is a lap bar only. You're just like dangling there. I would go as far as saying it's not even comfortable.
I kind of like the extra support when you're doing that.
Yeah,
over
something
and over
to hold on to while you're just like,
to
you
brace.
keep rolling over. It is.
You kind of ragdoll, otherwise you're like.
Yeah, this ride as a whole would be better if it didn't do that as many times, but
it's sort of the shtick.
Exactly. That's like the marketing appeal is the shot where it just keeps on going.
I love the shot. You're probably watching the shot right now.
It's very satisfying.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
So the next one on the list is one that I've never actually seen with my own eyes. That's an S&S Screamin' Squirrel.
So neither one of us have actually experienced this, but the idea here is that you start on level ground and then drop beneath yourself and you're just dangling upside down like a stall, but you just keep going through that same motion. I think they call it like a saxophone. It is so strange. I got to see one in person, but it was not operating. What is now called Sequoia Magic Loop at Gardaland. And I think that ride is actually done for. I don't think it's reopening. So there's only maybe one or two more of these. I think there's one in Russia, maybe China. So
I must ride one.
Yeah, these are obscure rides, very, very strange. But I can imagine that the hang time would be mental.
So we're talking about all these like cool, super modern, unique kind of inversions, but gotta give a shout out to some of the OGs. And I gotta say, the vertical loops on like Schwarzkopf coasters, insane.
Oh, yeah, these are by far my favorite vertical loops. It's not even close, because they are not teardrop shape, like how every other roller coaster manufacturer has designed them. Schwarzkopf said, we're just gonna make them straight circles, and it is nuts.
And the positive G-forces that you experience, it's nuts. And they're typically back to back.
Yeah.
Like it's rare you just hit one and then you don't hit another one for a while. I mean, there's a few rides like that, but for the most part, I'm thinking like Shockwave it over Texas. Boom, boom. Olympia looping. Boom, boom.
Yeah, Fire Dragon at Lagoon.
Yeah.
Mindbender Galaxyland, rest in peace. All really, really good vertical loops. If you watch my top 25, then you know my favorite roller coaster, or at least what I claim to be at the moment, is Edgenika at Fuji-Q Highline, which is just like a crazy S&S fourth dimension coaster in the style of like X2. But there's a moment on Edgenika that does not exist on X2, and that is this zero-G roll where riders are rotating through at the same time. So it's like how we described Ride to Happiness, how you'll be going through an inversion facing one direction, but then your vehicle is going another, and that's exactly what's happening here. So you can start the zero-G roll facing forwards, and then partway through you're facing backwards, and then you end it where you're facing forwards again.
And that's comfortable?
It is so insane. It is so cool.
That didn't answer my question.
Yeah, I'd say it's comfortable. It's a smooth transition.
Okay, that's
like X2 does it kind of like where it's like very rigid rotation. Yeah, exactly. And Edgenika feels like a smooth rotation.
So out of all of the different types of inversions out there, I would say neither of us would put stall like at the top of like our favorite types of inversions. However, Zadra has the most enormous, ridiculous stall ever.
Yeah.
And it has to be acknowledged.
This thing is freakishly huge. Like, you just feel like you're hanging there for so long. But what's so amazing about the way that RMC has crafted these stalls is that you don't get hang time going through it. It is just perfect zero-G, where you're just like floating through it upside down, staring down at the ground. It is wild. There's a lot of good ones out there, but Zadra's is by far the best.
I want to give a shout out to the stall on Gotham City Escape, because that one is done in a way where you actually are slowing down significantly, so
Right.
you really get that hang time there.
Yeah.
So I put those two as like the best versions of a stall.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Let's move on and talk about the flying coaster. Flying Dinosaur has this moment where I think it's technically like an inline twist, but the way it does it is just so crazy. Because, if you do like a B&M flying coaster, then, you've probably experienced like a similar motion where it's like on like Manta or Tatsu. But how Flying Dinosaur does it is this rotation while you're on your back, and then it's also dropping you down towards the ground, and you immediately are on your back, then rising back up to the sky in the same way as a pretzel loop. But it's not a pretzel loop, because the pretzel loop comes later. So it has both of these moments. It is just like pure insanity.
Bonkers.
Yeah. This is the most intense flying coaster, period. It is so crazy.
The rival to that in the US would be Tatsu, which we put the pretzel loop on this list because it deserves to be. It's insane.
Well, that's the craziest pretzel loop on the planet.
Yeah.
This moment is insane. Like, the rest of Tatsu is like, all right, you're gliding around, and enjoying your experience. And then
it's like, boom, face ripped off.
Literally, you start approaching this pretzel loop and you're like, oh my gosh.
It's enormous.
Yeah, yeah.
Freakishly enormous. So it had to make the list.
Oh, 100%. And then Taiga at Linomaki starts things off with a launch straight into this inversion that is so bizarre. It reminds me of the start of a ride like Pantheon, except you're almost like banked outwards, like an outer bank, but then you roll over, so you're upside down, and then you exit facing the other direction. I don't even know how the designers of Intamin came up with this moment.
I don't quite understand where
Yeah.
I'm going.
Yeah, so strange. Like, even from off the ride, you're looking at this and you're like, what is that? I don't even know.
But it's really good.
Yeah, it's a really cool start to the ride.
And then the last one, we're going to go back to RNC because not many other companies do inversions the way that RNC does. They're so creative. One of their most creative ones that they have is on Untamed. And it is their first inversion on the ride. And it essentially what it does is it will start rotating you in one direction and then switch halfway through.
Yeah, and that point in between the two inversions is an outer bank.
Mm-hmm.
So you're hanging to the side as you've like inverted one way and now you invert the other way. It is extremely strange. It's the only one in the world that does that. It is technically two inversions, but it's one element.
Very weird, right?
Yeah, really, really well done. So those are the main inversions that we thought of. Obviously, there are still plenty of incredible moments all around the world. Please let us know down in the comments below what your favorites are. If we covered them or if you think there's anything we left out.
Or if you're really intimidated by them, like I said at the beginning of the video, and watching this just made it worse. If that's the case, then we're really sorry.
Yeah, these are definitely the craziest. I would say if we didn't mention a specific inversion, it's probably because it's not as nuts as these moments are. But I'm sure they're still really good. So thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next time.